forge the false hyperversal Havenly Extremity rune scriptures of Despoiler, something that could actually break the authority of a Tier 1 hyperversal extremity. An elevation of this distinction was bound to be something grand, with Noah's eyes filtering across waves of information and prompts of loot at this moment, as he looked for the information of Extremity to Despoiler. Before that, the loot from another Tier 2 hyperversal extremity falling and the over 200 Tier 1 hyperversal extremities came in glorious waves. 1x Remnant Obsidian Absolute Hyperversal Rid of Extremity has been attained. 1x Tier 2 Singularity Crystal of the Record of Extremity has been attained. 1x Tier 2 Singularity Crystal of the True Death Record of Cabulon has been attained. 208x Singularity Crystal of the Records of Extremity have been attained. The Singularity Crystal of the True Death Record of Zed has been attained. The Singularity Crystal of the True Death Record of Johanna has been attained. The Singularity Crystal of the True Death Record of Jan has been attained. 208x Remnant Golden Hyperversal Writs of Extremity have been attained. 200 Remnant Golden Absolute Hyperversal Writs of Extremity are merging to form 20 full Golden Absolute Hyperversal Writ of Extremity. With every successive move Noah made, his progression and things he could do only became that much more explosive, as currently, he had the ridiculous grandeur of 23 Golden Absolute Hyperversal Writs of Extremity, and he added those gained from the Avernus Extremities loot. 23 tools that could birth 23 extremities that held planar boundaries. The mere stage of Extremity was so pristine and hard to reach that with his lineage and loot, he was accumulating even before he achieved Extremity. It felt like Noah was violating the sacred pathway of Extremity with everything he was doing. And this was bound to be even truer as he finally looked at the description of Extremity 2 Despoiler. A distinction and title that 9 beings share across recorded history, something obtained before they entered the folds of Extremity. While 9 beings share this distinction, the true Emperor of Quintessence is the only one among them in recorded history to have already achieved the purpose of the Extremity 2 Despoiler before he attained Extremity. The purpose of Extremity 2 Despoiler is to ultimately aid one in relating the life of a Tier 2 hyperversal extremity, with it allowing you to condense a false hyperversal Havenly Extremity 2 rune scripture of Despoiler. This false Extremity 2 rune scripture of Despoiler requires 300,000 units of either Vitalis or Vacuous hyperversal authority, along with immense reserves of resources, soul values, and authority to condense as no average existence standing before the cusp of Extremity is capable of condensing. A single false Extremity 2 rune scripture of Despoiler is capable of piercing a protected golden or obsidian hyperversal Havenly Extremity rune scripture on the body of a hyperversal extremity. A glorious distinction that granted an even grander authority for Noah to wield, one that others received, but were nowhere near as grand as him. His gaze left the battlefield that had become increasingly chaotic due to him. The will of his main body coming into focus again, as in the infinite hyperversal haven, the mountains of loot from the prompts appeared within his vaults of quintessence. There was more than enough loot to have the Sporos 3 of Extremity achieve maturity, but Noah's full focus was currently not on this. It was on the dazzling round, smooth, and deeply crimson crystallis that had finished its refinement after draining him of all of the reserves of Vitalis and Vacuous hyperversal authorities and more over the past half-day. The instant it was completed, bzzzt, it vibrated and released an oppressive authority that pressed on all beings. Those who were withstanding the pressure of the pure hyperversal extremity authority of Andromeda, being given off by the Andromeda Cleaver, were stopped in their tracks by this oppressive authority. It was something that was in the realm of extremity. It was truly only 5 inches wide, but the being who refined it knew that billions of light years worth of processed, refined, and purified authority of ruin lay inside of it. When one grasped this crystallos to absorb or assimilate into their existence, Noah didn't doubt that they would reach the 17th boundary layer of ruin, even before 1/100th of its essence was used up. His eyes were luminous, as even when he reached out towards it, he could fully grasp this crystallos that he had forged himself. His will went towards it as its details rose up. Low-grade ruin planolith crystal. The first refined planolith crystallos from the true emperor of quintessence, who is seeking to become the extremity of quintessence. It is low-grade in nature due to the refiner not having enough experience with his art, and the absence of crimson hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures in its forging. It is something that could normally only be refined and utilized by those in the gradations of extremity. Its foundation was built from vitalis and vacuous hyperversal authorities, and not hyperversal extremity authorities, through crimson hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures. Because of this, it is only 1% effective for elevating the extremity of ruin across the first gradation of extremity to the third gradation of extremity. It has no effectiveness on the fourth gradation of extremity or above, as only a middle grade or high grade ruin planolith crystallis may be effective for such a stage. If an existence below the folds of the gradations of extremity is capable of assimilating the essence of the low grade ruin planolith crystallos, they will have glimpses of the extremity of ruin as if this concept is inclined and truly compatible with their existence. This crystallos will aid them in forming their first hyperversal havenly extremity rune scripture. It is unknown and debatable whether the true emperor of quintessence himself can utilize this crystallos to break across the unscalable wall of ruin, which even if he does, it is even more debatable whether his concepts that are considered dead paths would follow this ascension to extremity with just this advancement. Through the refinement of this low-grade ruin planolith crystallis, your proficiency in the modified golden hyperversal planolith crystallis refinement art has increased by 1%. A proficiency of 100% will elevate your capabilities to a higher grade and increase the chances of refining higher grades of planolith crystallis. A wondrous product came to be. Noah's smile was devilish as he stared at it, its description revealing a world of possibilities as for now, it only confirmed that Xiaomi would now be attaining extremity very soon. Chapter 27:12, The Process of Extremity. 1. A low-grade ruin planolith crystallos. It was Noah's first product, with the modified golden hyperversal planolith crystallis refinement art, as the moment it was done. It was actually given a grading, while he received a percentage of proficiency. The more authorities he refined, the faster his rate of refinement would be, and the higher the grades of profundity of the planolith crystallis grew. Noah gazed at the low-grade ruin planolith crystallis before him that floated in space, and the oppressive pressure it released, its aura that was making others feel suffocated, exerting a sort of a pull towards Xiaomi, as her eyes fluttered open to gaze at it longingly at this moment. Noah beckoned towards her as her body floated over, and he went above even this as he gazed at the depths of the light years long domain where his people were overcoming the limitations and strengths of their souls to get ever closer to the Andromeda Cleaver. Come observe the process of extremity. He called them all over in such a shocking manner as Aurelia and Orion trembled. These beings who had always thought extremity would be far, far from their grasp, having their common sense once more shattered when Noah spoke about it so freely, as if he could decide when and where extremity would arrive. Others wouldn't even be able to know if it would come for them in 1,000 or 1,000,000 years, and yet he called them over to observe the process of extremity. They didn't tarry as they allowed the repulsive, pure, hyperversal extremity authority of Andromeda to push them back. A few hundred figures very quickly coming out of the domain encircling Noah and Xiaomi figures. This includes Hyperion and other Enders of Extremity, in addition to Henry, Barbados, Kazuhiko, and other prominent vassals. They circled around Noah and Xiaomi as with a thundering voice, the true emperor of quintessence spoke. For others, extremity is distant and forever out of reach. For us, it is merely a matter of time. The concept achieving extremity today is ruin, with the foundation of Xiaomi being extremely conducive to sources of chaos as with a little push, extremity will be within her grasp. Experience and feel it to the best of your abilities, and I will display what I see with my eyes for you all to see. Yes, even though they were gazing and observing the process, none of them were like Noah, who held eyes of extremity that could observe hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures, or understand just how the authority of extremity flowed. So at this moment, an illusory screen of light appeared with grand stature above her, displaying the scene of the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis and the figure of Xiaomi as it was subtly different compared to what the rest of them saw. Thereafter, Noah nodded towards Xiaomi, who breathed out any worries or nervousness. The gazes of many beings seemed to disappear and fall out of the picture as before her. There was only the dazzling crimson-colored planolith Crystallis and the figure of Noah. She would have never imagined her current position just days ago, and here she was now. She didn't forget the one who made all of it possible, as when she floated ever closer to the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis, she gazed towards Noah and bowed down deeply before she rose again and instantly thrust her hand out towards the smooth and round planolith Crystallis in front of her. Tendrils of crimson light began to surge on its surface as Xiaomi could not fully reach and grasp it. But these tendrils of ruin began to be pulled by her one by one, landing on her stellar obsidian skin as the moment they did so. Gum! Gum! It was like the sound of heavy booming metals reverberating out with every strand landing on her. And the moment she came in contact with the tendrils emanating from the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis, her body drank all of it in as instantly dazzling crimson flames of ruin erupted all over her body. Flames that coalesced and roared with purpose as above her head, the beginnings of a dazzling runic ecriture began to be forged. Yeah! Xiaomi bellowed out with ferocity as she became inches away from the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis. Even more tendrils of refined and pure ruin entering her existence as the precipice she had arrived at, the infinitesimally small distance that she had not yet been able to cross. She was slowly bridging this gap and arriving at the other side. The surroundings resonated and turned wild as above them. Seething waves of ruin and other sources of chaos began to gather. The Alethean haven of Apollyon rumbled as the natural law of entropy and other sources of chaos rose in cheering majesty. The stellar obsidian hourglass figure of Xiaomi became ever more resplendent and magnificent as her bearing became even more graceful, a halo of red light covering her as her dark stellar hair waved madly. She looked like a wholly infernal princess from ancient times that others could only stare at from afar, and in front of her gaze, dazzling prompts began to rise. A distance of unfathomable proportions has been crossed forcefully with profound pleasure. Extremely pure and refined authority of ruin has assimilated into your existence and connected the 17th boundary layer to the 18th boundary layer. You have arrived at the extremity boundary layer of ruin. Boom! An explosion of ruin bloomed as in a shocking show of utter majesty. The stellar obsidian palm of Xiaomi came to grasp and wrap around the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis. She was able to grasp an object meant for extremity, as it felt like she was holding onto a billowing and roaring crimson sun. Her small figure trembling as she once more released a valiant shout. Yeah! The shout this time was filled with authority, hyperversal extremity authority. Chapter 27:13, The Process of Extremity. Above Xiaomi, the runic scripture shone with a blinding light as letters were forged rapidly by an influx of billions of light-years of ruin from the low-grade ruined planolith Crystallis, very quickly releasing an obsidian glow and grandeur of a hyperversal heavenly extremity rune scripture that read, Ruin. The process caused the 17th boundary layer of ruin within Noah's own existence to vibrate and begin dancing crazily as he continued to observe the prompts that only appeared in front of Xiaomi. You are stepping on the ever-glorious path of the gradations of extremity. The extremity of ruin is acting as the base of your existence. So long as ruin persists, so will your existence. Boom! Billowing might exploded out as a fully forged hyperversal heavenly extremity. Scripture of ruin appeared, swirling with might and grandeur as it floated onto Xiaomi's body and released a terrifying devouring force, a force that devoured her origin and soul entirely. Her body and foundation became like a husk with nothing in it, all signs of life fading from her, as only the extremity rune scripture of ruin was ever radiant. And then an instant later, an even more domineering strand of soul began to be released from the extremity rune scripture of ruin, the soul of an entirely different being, as it filled up the empty body and foundation to cause it to transform into an entirely different form of life. Cellular structure was broken down and reforged to the singular atoms, as more and more strands of an extremity soul radiated from the extremity rune scripture of ruin, along with a restructured origin of extremity that was born on the basis of ruin. A pulse of shocking power then emanated from Xiaomi's body as from a lifeless husk. The glorious and mighty hyperversal extremity authority began to surge from it. In the far distance, one being watched this scene with stellar tears falling out of his eyes as he was something of his wildest imagination. It was the mad apex Emperor Caesar. He watched his daughter ascend to a stage even he had not neared yet, as when he saw her unmatched and holy aura, his heart trembled as no sign of madness could be seen from him. Only unbelievable happiness. This was his daughter. She was sick and dying weeks ago, as now everything was entirely reversed as she gained a sense of longevity and wonder that even he paled in comparison to. And now she forged the way forward for the infinite hyperversal haven, for the domain of the one being who made it all possible. His gaze couldn't help but linger on the glorious visage of Noah, whose own body had begun terrifically dancing with tendrils of ruin. On Xiaomi, the change continued as more and more of her soul was returned into her body as something entirely new, every part of it radiating extremity and majesty as it was tinted with a crimson glow. Her eyes opened with utmost power and ferocity as then she grasped the low-grade ruined planolith crystallos that had shrunk by a third in her hands ever tighter. And boom! An influx of light years of pure and refined ruin was pulled into her as beside the single extremity rune scripture of ruin, another one began to be forged and was completed a moment later, with a third obsidian hyperversal havenly extremity rune scripture of ruin beginning to be formed soon after. You are traversing the first gradation of extremity. The quality of your concept of extremity granted an obsidian hyperversal havenly extremity rune scripture at the onset, with its advancement into a crimson hyperversal havenly extremity rune scripture guaranteed as you enter the next gradations of extremity. You have accomplished an astounding achievement of skipping over golden hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures entirely and beginning your traversal of the gradations of extremity with an obsidian hyperversal havenly extremity rune scripture. An astounding achievement. Her figure was like a blazing obsidian sun that some of the hundreds of beings surrounding her and Noah had to look away from. She ate up the extremely pure and refined authority within the low-grade ruined planolith crystallus, as her hyperversal extremity authority only became more and more dense, very quickly beginning to exceed any normal Tier 1 hyperversal extremity, as more and more obsidian hyperversal heavenly extremity rune scriptures of ruin were born on her body. When the number of extremity rune scriptures reached 9, Wah! A glaring aura rose as another prompt appeared before her. You have attained the zenith of the first gradation of extremity. Your soul and very existence require nourishment and refinement from the established obsidian hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures of ruin before you can step on the second gradation of extremity. An unprecedented glow of power covered her as she released an aura even more terrifying than average Tier 2 hyperversal extremities. And yet, she was only at the zenith of the first gradation of extremity. The glow around her was maddeningly glorious and enticing as she opened her eyes soon after, the surrounding space becoming painted obsidian ever so briefly as of her might covered everything. Her hands unfurled to reveal a planolith crystallus that was dim and clear, now seeming like a transparent, round, and smooth stone that held nothing within it. An air of profundity and stupendous might circled around her as hyperversal extremity authority of ruin burned all around her, every part of her still undergoing changes, as 9 blinding obsidian hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures began to swirl protectively around her figure. At every moment, they released their authority to infuse and refine her very existence as she grew stronger every second. The scene of her glory was shown by Noah on the illusory screen as the eyes of the hundreds of beings around them shone, watching the scene of scriptures they had never seen before, as their hearts palpated due to it. Extremity can be unreachable and forever in the dreams of others, or as easy as breathing for some. Remember this scene as you seek extremity, a scene that will be repeated a few times today. As he spoke, Noah's gaze pointed above where another figure of him could be seen. It was the reified Weldian source of Vitalistic who currently held 23 golden absolute hyperversal writs of extremity. 23 authorities that would have a being with a planar boundary to achieve extremity. The eyes of the vassals flickered with brilliance as they became focused on the reified Weldian source of Vitalistic, with Noah's main body coming to gaze at the graceful and pure visage of Xiaomi, who radiated hyperversal extremity authority as with a wave of his hands, their figures disappeared. After fluctuations of the space-time continuum, they reappeared in the depths of the Apollyon-Alithian haven as Noah's voice thundered out around Xiaomi. How close are you with the other sources of chaos? After one domino fell, others would follow. This was especially so for a holder of the innate pellucid hyperversal extremity foundation of ruined chaos. With a dazzling smile that caused her astonishing figure to radiate even more brilliance, she replied, "Within the day, I should be able to take one or two of the other sources of chaos to extremity. It will be even faster if I get more of those planolith crystallos, but that can come later. You wanted to feel extremity closely? Yes?" As she spoke, her eyes breezed over the tens of other prompts she had seen of her aspects of existence and her foundation. One prompt was particularly brilliant. "You have attained the gradation of ruined chaos extremity foundation. Dual cultivation with any existence carrying sources of chaos will increase their and your rate of progression towards extremity and the traversal across the gradations of extremity by 10 million%. The traversal across the gradations of extremity, refinement of your existence, and the formation of your hyperversal havenly extremity rune scriptures will accelerate when dual cultivating and resonating with the authorities of the true Emperor of Quintessence." A myriad of prompts like these had risen in her mind as more continued to come, her graceful figure shining with a powerful light as she instantly disappeared from her position and pounced on the true Emperor of Quintessence. He had been taking the lead during their discussions of extremity in the past, but would he still be able to have the upper hand even now? With a glimmer of brilliance, a discussion of extremity began in the depths of the Apollyon-Alithian haven. As near the Alithian havens of the havenly authorities, other vassals stared at the reified Weldian source of Vitalistic